Okay, now what I have is Andy. Pick one of each. There's three different ones there. Hey, I have well, we're talking. Ray is going to read for us Genesis chapter 10. He volunteered. He's going to pronunciate all the names. But you know, I spoke last week and I said, you know, in the old King James Bible, they used to mark the names and separate them so that they could pronounce them. Okay. So I printed out from my old King James Bible the that chapter, and you can look if you read the names, how they put the markings on them. So at least to help those British people say the names properly. I don't know if it ever worked for them. I don't know how their pronunciation is with even the markings on them. But so that you know, because you got to remember the King James Bible. Oh, did I miss? The King James Bible is the Bible that Paul would have used, right? So now that's a joke, but anyway, but it's the Bible that Paul would have used, so you know that he would have wanted to pronounce the names correctly. Yeah, so you have that there. So you know, names are difficult all the time. So even when they do the Bibles, they still do them. Now here's what I want to do is I'm going to have Ray read chapter 10. But before we even discuss chapter 10, we're going to go and discuss the Tower of Babel. Okay? Because, and I don't know, or maybe they couldn't mix this correctly to do it, because they do genealogy separate. But when you remember last week when we spoke about, you know, Noah and the family, you know, Noah and the family getting off the ark, there's three of them there, Pastor. Anyway, when Noah and the family got off the ark, you know, they got out, they stretched, they'd been there for a year, like that. And they posted the city limit sign, you know, Ararat, elevation 12,000 feet, population 8. And then we discussed, well, how did it get from 8 to all these people? You get down to Abraham's family, and you know, you go beyond that. And that was the purpose of the genealogy in chapter 10, was to close that gap. But the way that 10 makes it sound, you listen when Ray's reading, is that they had families and they settled in different parts of the world. And that isn't the case, because when you get to 11, it says all the people gathered together, and they had, you know, they were one people, they had one language, and they had one thought, which was to build a city and to build skyscrapers and go from there. And then God comes down, scatters the people. So that's when the people who had gotten off the ark, who all were family, became non-family. I shouldn't say non-family, but they became different languages and they went to different places, and that's what scattered them out. So as we go through this, you got to kind of keep it in that order, but it's not in that order in the scriptures. So I'm going to pass this off to. Oh, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh. Okay, so Ray's going to read. He's been practicing all week, and while you read, I am going to pass one of these out. Okay, go ahead and start. Just right in the microphone so everybody.
You're going.
Okay.
As Dean told you, I volunteered last week at the end of the Bible study. I went up there and I said, I volunteered to read chapter 10 and study all the things and come up with a pronunciation on it. And that's what I did. I spent the entire week looking at and listening to names. I listened to all kind of presentations where the guy had a pretty good pronunciation and diction. And I'm hard of hearing. I have my hearing aids on, I had earphones on top of that, trying to listen to how they were pronouncing the words. So you're getting my version of what I heard over my ears. So it may not be 100%. I also have a smartphone, and the smartphone is very smart, smarter than I am. And if you go in there and you go into your Google Chrome, and so it tells you how to pronounce it. Kind of contracted over.
I'm sure how.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I've been doing all week long and everything. And then I came to the class and said, is it really a necessity that we learn all these names and everything? But anyway, we'll go with it.
Not that you learn them, but that we hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you can hear that because I had my earplugs or my hearing aids on, so it's coming over my ears, not you couldn't hear the sound that I was trying to produce on my phone. Anyway, the Table of Nations, chapter 10. This is the account of Sam, Ham, and Japheth, Noah's sons, who themselves had sons after the flood. The Japhethites, and I don't know why I keep thinking of the Jeffersons, but it's Japhethites. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, and that's not of Mayberry fame. Okay, it's a different Gomer. Magog, Medai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Raphath, and Tomaga, or Gomer. The sons of Javan, or Elijah, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodamin. From these, the maritime people spread out into the territories of their clans with their nations, each with its own language. The Hamites, the son of Ham was Cush, Masavi, Put, even though it's spelled P-U-P, it's P-H. Put and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Sheba, Havilah, Safta, Rama, and Topta. The sons of Rama are Sheba and Dedan. Cush was the father of Nimrod, who grew to be a mighty warrior on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. This is why it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The first centers on his kingdom were Babylon, Akkad, and Calneh in the Sinai. From that land, he went to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Calah, and the sun, which is between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. Mizraim was the son of the Luddites, the Ammonites, the Lehabatites, the Naphtalites, the Pathrusites, and the Calmuites, from whom the Philistines came, and the Capurites. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arbahites, the Semarites, and the Hamathites. Later, the Canaanites clan scattered, and the borders of Canaan reached from Sidon toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, and then towards Sodom, Gomorrah, Adam, and Zebulun, as far as Lasha. These are the sons of Ham by their clans and languages in their territories and nations. The Semites, or which are the sons of Shem, the sons were also born to Shem. His older brother was Japheth. Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. Eber was the patriarch. He was called out as a son of Abraham. And Eber is where we get the term Hebrew. The sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram were Hul, Gather, and Meshach. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. Two sons were born to Eber. One was named Peleg, and because in his time the earth was divided, his brother was named Japhan. Japhan was the father of Al-Madad. Shelah, Hasmapeth, Gerar, Hardaram, Uzo, Dikla, Obal, Abimel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. Jobab, I'm sorry. I thought it was Jobab. All these are sons of Joktan. The regions where they lived stretched from Mesha to Sephar in the eastern hill country. These are the sons of Cham by their clans and languages in the territories and nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons according to the lines of descendants within their nations. From these the nations spread out over the earth after the flood. In the area over there.
Okay, so if you'll take out a piece of paper, I'm just gonna have you, I don't care if you spell them right, just list what he just read.
I took one.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's the thing, and this is what we discussed last week, because we talked most of last week about genealogies and the importances of genealogies. And geez, we don't even do genealogies anymore. But back in Bible times, not even just Bible times, but in history, genealogies were so important. And I'd read the quote, and I want to reread this quote from William F. Albright again that I read last week to again emphasize the importance of genealogy. Because now, see, you'll all remember Genesis 10 and the Table of Nations, because you always remember the time that Ray sat here and read them. You won't forget that. You won't forget that part. But William F. Albright, supreme, archaeologist of the 20th century, had said that he considered the Table of Nations, Genesis 10, one of the 20th century's, the 10th chapter of Genesis stands absolutely alone in ancient literature without a remote parallel. Even among the Greeks, where we find the closest approach to a distribution of peoples and genealogical framework, the Table of Nations remains an astonishing, accurate document. And that's high praise. That's to say, these are important. They're just not a list of names. They're just not filling a gap. We're not just saying, well, if you want to trace your ancestry, it's that. That is important, that God is saying something. And the other thing that I'd said about it was that because this comes before we get into the end of chapter 11 and Abraham's family, and he's calling out a nation to himself, is that God's the father of all nations, all Gentiles, all Jews, whatever. I think he's making like a exclamation point here, because the rest of the story I'm going to tell you is going to be about a people that I have chosen to be, it says in there, to be a blessing to the nations. I just want you to know, you're my people, you are the nations, and I am giving you this group of people to bless you. And I think that ties it, all together. I'm in a discussion with I don't know what he is. I really don't. Okay. Ray had sent me an article a couple of weeks ago talking about the asphalt and the pitch for how they made the made the Tower of Babel. But I started looking at this guy's website that it came from, and this had nothing to do with what the article was. I'm sure his article was right. But I'm looking at this article, and I can't figure out what this guy is. I mean, is this guy one of those anyway, but these Hebrew groups that want to kind of claim Christ, but still got to keep the laws, and that, but so I read a bunch of his articles. I mean, he's well written in that. But when we were talking, he was telling me, like, Jesus, because I asked him, I go, to you is Jesus God? And he said, no, he goes, Jesus never claimed to be God and all that. So he's a Torah observant believer in Messiah. And he uses all the Israeli terms and stuff like that, because he said, well, the Greeks have corrupted it all and all that. But the point is that I had to answer him that, because he goes, well, if you, because I told him, I go, I'm a former Jew. And he goes, there's no such thing as a former Jew. If you believe in the God of, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then you're still a Jew. And I said, well, what about, I go, every Christian I know believes in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but he's not just the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's the God of all mankind. And I referred him back to Genesis. And we've had 5 or 6 conversations going back and forth. But anyway, but that's what William Albright's saying. It's how important that is. I wanted to, before we go to Tower of Babel, I wanted to follow up on a couple of things from last week. And I wish that Dave was here because he asked. We talked about, well, maybe it was Will that asked, about the, when God said, I'm just going to give you 120 years. And did people live that long or, like that? And I said, no, I think it was 120 years till he was going to flood them out, like that. So I looked it up, and Abraham's father, Terah, lived to be 205. Abraham lived to 175. Isaac lived to 180, and Jacob lived to 147. So people were still living, being born and still living, because there may have been people that were born before that didn't. So I think that's, I think that's the part about it was just 120 years, and then I'm not putting up with mankind any longer. So let's oh, you know what? I don't think I passed out the someone want to pass these out to everybody? Just give her, I think there's enough for everybody to have one. That's Genesis 11. And then we'll come back to 10. Anyway, you can listen while he's passing them out. It says, now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. Now see, in 10, there was a couple of times where it was going through the genealogies, and it says, and were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their names. So that lets you know that this was after the Tower of Babel, that 10's coming after the Tower of Babel. Because it says the earth had, one language and one speech. Like that. So Noah's descendants built the Tower of Babel for 2 reasons, and I think I have them listed there on your notes: to make a name for themselves and to assure their unity and security. Why do people today build skyscrapers? Why do people want to build a skyscraper higher than the last skyscraper, that was built? It's to make a name for themselves. And hopefully the tower will be named after those, after those people. Now, there's people that have great talent for being able to do that. They can manage cities. It'll say in here that, that come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower. Most people miss that because they're building a city and tower. Most people think, oh, they just got together and decided to build a tower. But they're building a whole city. Now, thing to keep in perspective is the numbers of people. Now, we said last week that there was 70 families. We compared that to the 70 families that came from with Jacob into Egypt, and some other stuff was 70s. But so if you take the people off the ark and they develop into 70, it's at least 70 families, but say 70 families, say, I don't know, 10 people a family, They're pretty productive. Not like Gideon, would it say he had 70 kids? Huh? You know? Yeah, but say 10. So what are we up to? We're up to 700. And say that those are only a third of the families listed because, you know, go so and so, you know, Ham had a son, and then it'll give the genealogy of two of the sons, not the other two. But you figure, you know, they probably had kids. So how many people are we talking about? 10,000 people, maybe? I mean, 10,000 people can move together. We saw 1 million of them move across the desert with Moses. So 10, and we don't know how far the plains of Shinar are from, you know, the boat ramp where the ark came in, you know, just because we don't know. So you could have, I don't know that it's that many, but you could have 10,000 people that show up. They're all of one language. They're all of one thought. And they go, let's build the city, you know? And then they, you know, and then they do that. So I don't know how many of you know Robert Moses. Anybody, was Robert Moses around when you were in New York? Yeah, he's the one who built New York in the 20th century. Pardon? Built all the parks, all the beaches, Rockefeller Center, you name it. He built it. The World's Fair, you know, he built, I read the book. Yeah. It's 1,100-page book written by Robert Caro, but it didn't include the one thing I wanted to know. I wanted to know the transaction between Walter O'Malley and Robert Moses when the Dodgers left Brooklyn. And no. So I read up the thing about Robert Caro. He says, you know what? He goes, I had it in there, but the editor cut it out because he said the book was already too big. And that was the one thing I wanted to know. But anyway, he built everything, and everybody who at least be from New York or who deals in, you know, the book is used as a textbook, written in 1974. It's still used as a textbook in colleges, I'm sure, for civil engineering and, you know, whatever city planners and that go through. But I'm just saying, people do these things because they're motivated, but it's like building monuments to them, you know, monuments themselves. I think that's what the people, you know, here was doing. Now in the genealogies, it says about Nimrod. Nimrod was one of the descendants of one of those guys. I don't remember. Huh? Yeah, okay, so he was a descendant of Canaan, who was a descendant of Ham. Remember, Canaan was the son that got cursed by Noah for what his father Ham had done. So Nimrod, he's already coming from a bad seed, but he was a mighty warrior and all that. So he's the one who's leading the operation here in, you know, in Babel. So it says, so they had bricks and they had stones. The reason that Ray had sent me the article about the asphalt was because some people will say, well, see, those people didn't trust God, so they wanted to waterproof the tower so it wouldn't get flooded again because they didn't trust God to, you know, to do it. Could be. I think that they waterproofed it to keep the rain out. So I mean, just regular rain and stuff like that. Do your microphone.
I was listening to a commentary by David Guzik, and he was doing chapter 10 in Table of Nations, and he happened to mention the fact that they built the Tower of Babel, and the city of Babylon was the same thing. And then he said that they used asphalt. Now, I'm using our terminology of asphalt. Asphalt was to put on the road. What are you talking about? And then he said, well, that's what they used to put on the boat that they put Moses in. I said, well, you put asphalt on a boat, it's gonna, you know, it wouldn't float, it's sink. So none of this is making sense. I said, I better go and do some research. And then did some research and found out that the words asphalt, pitch, and tar are all synonymous.
Yes. Anyway, so and so the you know, the New King James here that I've got uses asphalt. Some of the other ones use something. Who've got a different translation that says something other than in verse 11, verse 3, that says something different than asphalt? Huh? Bitumen? Okay, that's even harder. Right. Yeah, but it's pitch. It's what Moses' mom, lined the reeds, the basket of reeds was so it wouldn't, so it wouldn't sink, it'd be waterproof. Noah used it to waterproof the ark, and it's used here. So go ahead.
Looking at the. Bible. Interesting, the first time saw a nice that's the city. Well.
Well,
They got.
we don't know this. I mean, but this is really early. This is really early on. And we know it's probably the same material that the Hebrews had to use in Egypt when they were building whatever they built in Egypt. I don't know if they built the pyramids, not. People speculate about that, but whatever they were forced, because remember, the Pharaoh said, make them, they got too much time on their hands. They're breeding. They got time to breed, so make them make bricks without straw. So that'd be the first time I would think, okay, I guess you use straw to make bricks, Okay. So this is the same, the same material. Again, you'd have to go back and see how many years passed to even get to the people, what do we say, 1,600 years to get to Noah's flood, something like that. I'm just trying to remember. Yeah, so, but maybe that, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it says in the ESV that I'm reading, it says, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. So they baked them.
That's how you make the brick, yeah.
And they fired it. So they had to have some super amount of heat. Anybody who's worked with ceramic.
Some kind of kiln, yeah.
Well, they had the fire demonstrate.
Well, that's
How to make the
But-
bricks in the place.
but that's later on. That's later on. But you don't know how quickly people figure things out. I mean, you just don't know. Someone says, hey, I can make something out of mud. I mean, it stays. Well, I mean, it stays. And so, okay, I'll do more and don't know, because it doesn't say. And I guess you can go back and look at archaeology and see how far back it goes that it says that, people knew how to make things, No, but so they made a rocket ship to heaven. I question how much their knowledge was. But remember, I said in the beginning, I think that they were a lot smarter back then than we are now. We have better technology to help us out. We have to invent artificial intelligence to help us figure stuff out, whereas they could figure it out, I guess, by themselves. Yeah. So here's the thing though, is that it says, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Now, that's debatable what that means. Heavens means sky, in most instances. I don't think they're trying necessarily to get to the place where God lives, but I don't know what they had in their mind as far as where they thought, God lived. But I imagine they thought he lived somewhere in the sky, and that the tower is going to go into the sky. But I don't think that they were going to get into the sky and have some kind of a, observation tower up there to say, hey, look, I can see the angels up there. And, stuff like that. But here's the thing. Let us make a name for ourselves, which we discussed, lest, now here's what they're trying to avoid, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. And that's exactly what building the tower got them. They're saying, let's join together. We can join together. Remember, what did God tell them to do? Told Adam and Eve to do it. And he told, after Noah, he told them to do it. What did he say to do? And fill the earth, not fill the Shinar Valley, but to fill the earth. And so this is where they're going against God. They're saying, wait, we want to stay together as a family. The protection in numbers and, whatever it is. I mean, just that we can do we can do better ourselves. Okay, so land of Shinar, if you look on that map, let me get one of these maps. If you look at the map, it's got the legend for the different colors for the different families on it, in the bottom left-hand corner. But I think right around where it says Nimrod, just to the northwest of the Persian Gulf, it says Nimrod. If I was betting money, I'd say that was the Shinar Plain, because that's where Nimrod built the city. And probably when they got scattered, he said, look, he probably said, look, folks, I'm staying here. You guys scatter. I'm the mighty warrior. I'm the one, who can do that. So we'll get back to that map in a second. So then if we go down to verse 5 in the notes, in 11 verse 5, it says, but the Lord came down to see the city. So they're making this declaration that they're going to build the city. We're going to build the city. We're going to build the tower up to the heavens, and we're going to do this so that, God can't do anything to us anyway. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which are the sons of men, which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do. Which is funny. He's saying, look, he goes, they're all together, they have one language. This is what they do. They go against my word. They try to reach up to the heavens. This is what they do. Okay. So then he says, let's see, one language, and this is what they begin to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. So he's going to let them kind of go their own way. He says, come, let us go down there and confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore, its name is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the earth. So, so they're making this proclamation. They're doing this big thing. God comes to us. Let me see this. Let me see what they're doing. Because that's what they're doing? No, they're not.
I gotta go to Australia.
Yeah. Well, at least we got to go to Australia. You'd speak English still, or their form of it. Yeah. But-
and you have to know that
Yeah.
God has a sense of humor. You know what? Let's go down today and change the languages.
Yeah. Well, I think Ray had pointed out to me one day we were talking, and he said, it was so small, God had to go down and look at it. They think they're building this great thing up to God, and God's going, well, I got to go down with it. What is that? What is that? What are you doing? So what's that? Oh, I thought you were saying. Oh, Ray.
Well, the thing that in reading the presentation and everything was the fact that Ham got in bad, and then he produced Canaan, and Canaan was cursed, and then Nimrod was his son, and it's sort of like escalating wrong. And when it says that Nimrod was a mighty hunter, he hunted man. He didn't go hunting game, he went hunting man, and bought him and put him captive and made him do his will. And that's how they could all communicate. So they were building the tower.
There's nothing good that. Pardon?
Where's the favorite?
What?
About Nimrod.
About Nimrod was the son of Canaan.
No. He's asking about where he hunted men.
Find that he was one of them in the Bible.
What, I'm sorry, I couldn't, what,
He wants to know
I'm
where,
wondering where you found that he was a hunter of men in the Bible.
that he was, let me see.
But he was a mighty warrior.
Yeah, that he was a mighty warrior, man of fame.
But a warrior is a hunter of men. That's what a mighty warrior is. That's not a mighty hunter. But a mighty warrior is a hunter of men. Isn't that what warrior means?
huh?
Hunter hunts game, but a warrior bats against men.
Yeah.
But what happens is, what happens is, and so he's a mighty warrior. And then, because I'm sure that probably doesn't say it in the scriptures, but then a commentator would look at it, just like Sherry did, and say, well, what does a warrior hunt? You know, other men. Okay. And he seems to be kind of a bossy, nasty guy anyway. You know, so it's one of those things that people would speculate about, but it may not be in the scripture, but it's something that you could probably fairly assume, you know, from it.
And that's where most of the commentaries that I listen to, they're all the same thing. So it's, you know, one person verifying the other person saying that this is what their interpretation is. And he said that he was a mighty hunter, that he hunted men, he didn't hunt wildlife. And that his whole thing was, you know, he was kind of like into the tyrants.
Yeah, kind of a nasty guy, and I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I do a lot of research and studies and everything else, and I go into the historical, like Akkad. The Akkad people, the Akkadites, were basically, what's his name? Jordan or, you know, can't think of his name. The first, Jordan, the first was the king of Akkad and the Academians. And the Academians, basically, when they captured somebody, they would behead them. And they would check their heads on top of each other in the pyramid. So that's how brutal they were.
Yeah, well, people were brutal. Nimrod wasn't a nice guy, but he was a sharp guy. I mean, he was a leader. He was able to, you know, move people and stuff like that. And obviously, he's got a whole story about him in the Bible. And I always give people thumbs up if you get a story about you in the Bible, good or bad, because I got none. Okay, because I've got none. Yeah, right. That's right. That's right. So anyway, okay. So it said, therefore, it's called Babel because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there, the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the earth. And then that's where, okay, so now go to the greenish chart, the greenish brown chart, which I don't have one in front of me here. And I don't have one here. I got the other one. Here, I'll take one. This one here. You got one? Okay, yeah, this one here. If you look at, yeah, so as it goes through, what Ray read is you can follow along on the charts that Noah had 4 sons, okay? Shem, Japheth, you just go down. Ham had 3 sons. I just killed one off. Shem, Japheth, and Ham. And then you start with Ham, okay? So Ham had 4 sons, and it says that in there. Cush, Mizraim, Phut, Canaan, okay? So it lists those, and it talks about those earlier in the thing, and then it gets it into the genealogy. And then it lists all, okay, so then it's got Cush's descendants, that ends with Sheba and Dedan there. And you see under Cush is Nimrod. So it's Nimrod, not Canaan. Okay, so there's Nimrod. And then under the other one, that Mizraim, and then Phut. See, Phut's got nothing. Oh, huh?
Just ends.
Yeah, just, does that mean he had
He
none
just
or
had
that?
girls.
I'm sorry?
Maybe he just had girls.
Oh, there you go. Well, you know what? That could be. That could be. He had to pay for all the weddings for all these other people here. So, anyway, but then it kind of cuts off the line. There's nothing else mentioned of anything of these other people because God has made this point. That doesn't mean those people didn't reproduce. It doesn't mean that some of you are not, well, you wouldn't be the sons of Phut, but you could be the sons of, or daughters of Mizraim. You could be. We don't know. But I mean, but just because it ends doesn't mean that. So it's the same thing with Japheth, and his, but then that's Shem. Okay, and now Shem's got these descendants, but we're only concerned about the ones in red, because those are the ones that are going to lead to Terah and to Abraham. It's going to lead to the beginning of the Israel nation. So if you look at those, you can see, and all these people are, listed. So that red goes from Shem to Arphaxad, Salah, Eber, Peleg. Now Eber's got a son, Joktan, and then he's got a lineage from there, and then it ends. So then it goes Peleg, Reu, Serug, Nahor. Now some of these are in the latter part of chapter 11 after the story of Babel. Nahor, and then it goes to Terah. And then Terah has, he's got sons, he's got Haran, he's got Nahor, and he's got Abraham. And then you can see like Haran, his goes on and says about who some of those people are, and Nahor and Milcah, and then who they're, who all they're. But you get to Abraham, it goes down to Abraham in the red, and then it extends the line. And it's going to go to Sarah, and it's going to go to, because you see Abraham's got these other wives here, Keturah, and then there's her kids, and then Hagar, who had Ishmael, okay, and then Ishmael's line is there, and then Sarah, which was his half sister and wife, and so then she had Isaac, who married Rebekah, and then because now if you look at Rebekah's line, it goes up because she's a cousin, because it was it Abraham sent his servant to his cousin's home. Yeah, and so you gotta watch for that. Okay. And then you got Isaac and Rebekah, and then they made Jacob, and then you've got Jacob has 4 wives, like that, and now the ones in red are the ones who make up the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so you see how that works? That's how it gets down there. Now, see, like Esau, Jacob had, there was Jacob and Esau that Isaac had, Jacob and Esau, and you see Esau's line there, but Esau is not in the line for the crown. Let's see, Prince William is next in line for the crown. There's somebody in there who's in the royal family but isn't in the line. They're in the royal family, but they're not.
Andrew.
Well, Andrew gets kicked out. I mean, if enough people had died, Andrew would have been probably in line. Well, no, that's not even true, because Charles, it's his kids that are in the line. That's right. You're right, Howard. Andrew's in the royal family, but he's not. There's no way that he's going to be He's never going to be king. Right, there you go. Yeah, so this is the same type of thing. What did I say last week? I said last week that if you look in the King James and it talks about some of these princes and that later on, like in Kings or somewhere, and it calls those people dukes. Because that was what was in the British, royalty and stuff like that. So when they're translating the King James, what do you call those people? Call them dukes. What if there was a Duke of Earl? Yeah. Anyway, so that's how the line goes. That's what 10 and 11 do. I mean, like I say, after probably I don't know, maybe Sarah or something, Ryu, somewhere in there. That's where the latter part of 11 comes in. They go down to Terah and Abraham. Before that is chapter 10. So that's good to know. Now the map. So if you look at this, I hope you can read. This is as big as I can get the darn thing. So the purple, or ladies probably call it a different color. What's that? Lavender?
Yeah.
Lavender, okay. So the lavender is Shem, and Shem's the line of Abraham, that line that we just read. So you look at where all the purple names are, and that's where supposedly, they went. Okay. And then the orange one, the tangerine one, no, I don't know what it is, is Ham. So that's where his people spread out to, and Japheth is the green, and that's where they went. And you see in the greens, they go up into Europe, into central Europe, that Magog up towards the top. Gomer. Now I tried to look at this, but I know that Gomer used to be considered like Germany, and that, but it looks like it's further over. Magog and Gog and that are kind of on that Russian border, with all those Stan countries, Uzbekistan, and all those places. But they become different, different people groups who expand themselves. Now, what got people further along than this, because this is scattered throughout the known world at that time, what got them to South America or whatever, you don't know. If you ever look at the continents on a world map, and you've probably done this before, where you can see the continents fitting into each other, like South America, if you push it up against Africa, and Africa goes in like that, and South America goes out like that, is that before the flood, supposedly, I wasn't there. I'll ask Pastor Callio. No, no, but there was one landmass. Okay, so he separated the waters, the seas from the land. So there was one landmass, and through all that disturbance of the flood and the cracking open of the ocean floors and all the turmoil that went through there, it broke up the land, drifted them apart, and made the continents. So it's that way you remember it, Pastor Callio? Yeah. No. So that's where they go. And then, we see, I was reading something not too long ago. I don't remember what it was in relation to, but someone was talking about, I know what it was. It was talking about names of cities, how even though people travel away, they still name their cities after where they came from. And we see that in America. They have a York over there. We have a York in Pennsylvania, but the real one is the New York. And there's a whole bunch I can't think of all off the top of my head, but all those towns along the eastern seaboard named after cities in England. Cities in Australia are the same way, because the people from the British Empire migrated, beginning with the prisoners, but migrated to migrated there and just kind of named their cities. This is, pardon?
What was the?
Yeah, no, with what they, with what they had, right?
Well, the one thing too, in that one presentation that I told you about, that Tacoma,
Uh-huh,
Grace Bible Study.
yeah,
He mentioned the fact that the one that we should be most thankful for is Javan. Because Javan had the 4 sons and they were all seafarers. They built
There you
the
go.
ships that got them out to the coastlines, and it says so right in the Bible.
yeah.
And that's how they ended up in Portugal and Carthage and Italy.
And you don't know how much of that is God's gift to them. Because we wonder, how'd they learn to be sailors? How do they know it was safe to go sail on the ocean? I mean, huh?
No,
Yeah.
I know a guy.
Yeah, no, like that, and that God gifts them in a certain way where, they think that they're learning it, or they think that they have an instinct for it, but it's really God's gift. Look, we need these people to learn how to navigate the oceans, and we need these people to do this, and we need these people to,
Yeah, go get Vikings and Harris the Red.
yeah. No, so anyway, okay, so you got an idea there about about how all that worked with the Table of Nations and with the Tower of Babel. But does it make more sense that you see that the people walk in unison from the ark to the plains of Shinar over whatever period of time? Because remember, it just started with Noah, his wife, 3 sons, and their wives, and graduated to, once you get to the Tower of Babel, there's grandkids involved, because Nimrod was a grandchild of Noah's, and maybe great grandchildren. So however long it takes to produce at least that much is the time that they were just kind of migrating along, or trying to make heads or tails of things, or whatever, to where they felt confident enough. Now they probably felt confident enough. We'll finish with this. They probably felt confident enough because they had a guy like Nimrod to motivate them. And even though he may have been a scoundrel, and we don't know how much of a scoundrel he was, because we have generals today that are mighty warriors who kill a lot more people than Nimrod ever thought about. When we were talking, Bud talking about, the Enola Gay, like that. And some general said, boom, go kill 70 million. But we look at them as war heroes. So maybe Nimrod's a war hero. May have been kind of a scoundrel guy, but he's a war hero. But he was the one, I'm guessing, I'm speculating, which qualifies me to write a commentary, but if I can speculate enough. But is that he motivated the people to go and at least build a big city. Now God may not have been pleased with it. Maybe he did it for the wrong motivation. Remember, they did it so that they would be known and for their own protection. Maybe if they did something like that for the glory of God, it would have turned out different. One last thing. I said I was going to quit. One last thing. So you got the scattering of the nations and the confusing of the languages. Where does that reverse itself? Pardon? No. In Acts chapter 2, at Pentecost, with the coming of the Holy Spirit, is everybody can understand the word in their own language. But it was the one word going out. They were able to hear it. That's what brought the people, the church, back together. With all of a sudden, now the languages weren't confusing. It wasn't separated. But that's a whole theology of a different type. So, any last questions? Right on time. Okay. Oh, we'll look something up.
No, that's a quick one for you.
Yeah, it's fine. Take out time.
Because where it says Let us make a name for ourselves, and we be faithful. Let's leave the earth of the face of the earth. Let's build a city and a tower. It looked like they have one single purpose. Maybe there was a leader. That's what I took it to be, that they collectively had one single purpose to do this big project.
Right. But I think that it was probably a guy like Nimrod who persuaded them. I mean, wait, you've been to church, congregation meetings. How easy is it to persuade everybody to move in the same direction? There's only 60 of us here, and we're in air conditioning, and we're here voluntarily anyway. So chances are we agree kind of with each other, So try to figure out with a big group of people like that, what it would take to persuade people. It would take the strong-minded, hey, Moses was no slouch. Moses had a big job, and the people pretty much did what Moses. One last thing. Okay. So in Shinar there, they decide to go against God. They're going to make a new religion. They don't know they have a religion, but they're going to make a new religion. How long does it take for people to shut the old religion and make a new religion? Yeah, it's like that. You take the Israelites. They're waiting for Moses to come down. Remember, they're led by God. They're hearing from God. They're seeing the works of God. They're pillar of fire. I mean, the whole thing. Moses goes away for 40 days. And what do the people do? Well, before that, though, before that, Aaron, okay, so Aaron's left in charge. I don't know, maybe he's playing games on his phone. I mean, he's not really paying attention. Yeah. And the people come to him and say, Aaron, get off your butt. You need to give us our own God. That's basically what they said. You need to give us our own God. What are you going to do? He goes, he doesn't even question. He doesn't say, what are you guys talking about? I mean, Moses hasn't been gone that long. Let's give it a few more days. He says, okay, I'll tell you what. You bring me all your jewelry, all your earrings, you bring me all your stuff, and we're going to build an idol. And put it in your Swiss bank account. Yeah. No, but, as far as the account goes, he doesn't hesitate. They go, what are you going to do about it? He goes, okay, bring me all your jewelry. And that's how, and so to watch the people in Shinar do this, not surprising. That's the nature of man, and we would probably, I shouldn't say we, but the bigger we, the tweens, probably do that all the time. Give up the God of the Bible, even just for a momentary, pleasure or an idea of dabbling with something else.
Well, you see it on a smaller scale, but large across the world in all of the Christian denominations. They break apart because somebody doesn't like the way you light the candles left to right or right to left or whatever. And it takes little or nothing to make that happen.
Are you saying I was splitting the church this morning the way that I was lighting the candles?
Yep.
Anyway, so that's that story. So let's close with Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be
thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us
Amen.
from the kingdom,
Kingdom,
power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Linda, good to see you there.
Yeah.
Howard sits up close, so he comes in clear, but he's got you all blurred out. Next week, you guys have a good day. God bless.
All right.
You.
Give our best to Janet.
Okay, thank you. Let me see.
All right. She don't.
Here's